Hey YouTube, John here with another review, and today we're going to be taking a look at the GP Toys H2O Aviax. Now this quadcopter looks to be almost identical to the GP Toys Aviax and appears to have all the same features such as headless mode, cruise control, things like that. The primary difference is that this model is advertised as being waterproof. Now before we go too far, I just want to note that the manufacturer states that the control board and the motors are waterproof. However, they make it a point to state that the battery is not waterproof. So completely submerging this thing underwater is not a wise thing to do. Now, when you get the Ready to Fly package, it will come complete with the quadcopter, transmitter, a spare set of props, prop guards, screwdriver, 2 batteries, and a USB charger. Really, the only thing that you're going to need to get this thing up in the air is 4 AA batteries for the transmitter. Now moving into the transmitter, you can see it's the larger WL Toy style transmitter, which is actually one of my favorite toy grade transmitters to fly with. It's got a nice backlit LCD that displays your rates, your trims, lets you know if your LEDs are on, and indicates whether you're in headless mode or not. Your trim buttons are right here. You got your yaw trim, your throttle trim, forward and back, left and right trim right here. Alongside the LCD display, you have your cruise control button right here. And the way cruise control works is the quadcopter is constantly remembering the last 40 seconds of inputs that you've given it. And if you press cruise control, it will replay those inputs in the air automatically. 2 things to remember about cruise control is that you have to control the throttle manually. So it can't keep the proper elevation for you. You have to do that. And the second thing is since the quadcopter doesn't know where it is in space, even though you didn't hit any objects in the last 40 seconds of flight, the quadcopter still might. So you just want to keep that in mind. Now below this button is headless mode, and that's where a small problem lies. There is no labeling of these buttons, so I'll be flying and want to put it in the headless mode and I accidentally hit cruise control. Next thing you know, I'm on the roof of my truck with an old flagpole trying to knock my quadcopter out of a tree. You know, so I wish they labeled them. I'm going to probably take a marker of some sort and just mark H and C just so I know headless cruise control. You know, maybe something you want to do if you pick up this quadcopter. Generally, the headless mode actually works very well. It never seems to lose its heading unless you crash the quadcopter. So as long as you remember the initial heading, you know, in an emergency case, you could use the headless mode as a sort of return to home, if you will. Now on the left side of the LCD display, your top button here controls the LEDs in the quadcopter, so pushing it once will turn the lights off, pushing it again will turn them back on. And like I said, you'll get an indication on your LCD as to whether or not your LEDs are on or not. Below that is the control for the optional camera. Now moving up to the top of the transmitter, you have a shoulder button on the left side. This controls your flips. Push it once, input which direction you want the quad to flip. The quadcopter will flip and then come out of flip mode. And then finally, on the top right, this is your rate button. Now the quadcopter has 4 rates that range from slow to, you know, reasonably fast. It's definitely not a speedy quadcopter. The yaw rate also increases with each change in rate. However, the yaw is a little slow, but it is proportional to your pitch, so it really is easy to fly very smooth. Now the last thing I want to cover before moving into the quadcopter is how to recalibrate the accelerometers. So you should be able to see the LEDs shining here on the counter. And if you take both sticks to the transmitter and move them down and away from each other, you'll see the lights go out. Then release it. Once the lights come back on, your accelerometers have been reset. Now the quadcopter itself kind of has this cool mini DJI Phantom kind of look to it, you know, and it's got this little fake GPS dish on top. But it seems like most of its design cues are based off the Syma X5. And now the prop guards that are supplied with the quadcopter, they appear like they'd work pretty good. They kind of have these turn-ups here to protect you from the ceiling. But unfortunately, I found that they're a little too flexible and they can actually hit the props during a flip and take the quad out of the sky. I had it crash more than once doing a flip, so it's definitely not a good thing. Speaking of the props, one really cool feature that I like about this quad is that they use pins. See it right there. They use a pin to hold the prop on. So instead of fiddling around with little tiny screws and losing the screws, stripping screws, you know, just pull the pin, pop the prop right off. Simple as that. Now the quadcopter has nice bright LEDs. You know, they have this little blinking light up here in the fake GPS dome, and then down on the arms, you have green in the front, green in the back, red in the front. You know, they are really bright, but with the painted body, they really don't shine through the top of the arms. So I wouldn't really consider this one a night flyer. I'm not sure if it's different for the orange body, but where this one, since they painted the shell, you know, the light just doesn't shine through. The battery compartment is reasonably large. I would say it's comparable to, say, the Syma X5, and it even has a Syma style connection here where you plug the connector right into the body. And it houses a 650 milliamp hour battery, and that battery gives you about 6-minute flights with the prop guards on, and 6 minutes and 15 seconds with the prop guards off. Low voltage warning is relatively short at about 35 seconds, and the battery takes about 45 minutes to an hour to charge with the stock charger. Now, as far as the waterproof claim goes, I would say that if you're using the standard definition of waterproof, then no, this quadcopter is not waterproof. Water tolerant would probably be a more accurate description. I did spend a little bit of time at the local pond with it, just kind of playing around. And I found that if you hit the water at any angle other than completely flat on the belly, the props would hit the water, flip the thing over, and it just sank like a stone. I mean, it sank in seconds. And then when I retrieved it from being completely submerged, it kind of ran. It was kind of running the props up full blast. And then when I unplugged the battery and plugged it back in, it wouldn't bind. It wouldn't light the LEDs. I tried a fresh dry battery. It still wouldn't do it. It wasn't until the quadcopter completely dried out that it bound again and flew. And it flew fine. You know, I took it apart and kind of inspected the board and didn't find any evidence of water damage. So it tolerates water, but it doesn't like it. You know, I think this would be a good choice if you're going to be flying around the water or snow or, you know, anywhere wet, and knowing that if it goes in, there won't be any lasting damage. But I definitely wouldn't recommend purposely flying this thing into the water. It's just not a good idea. Other than that, I think that covers everything. So let's go outside and see what this thing can do. Okay, we're out here with the GP Toys AVX H2O, and we're going to start it off in low rates. And there's low rate yaw, not very fast. You know, low rates in general are pretty slow. You know, like I said in the review though, this would definitely be a great beginner's quadcopter because it's just not going to surprise you. You know, it's smooth and stable, and I'm just really impressed with the way it flies. And it's not a rocket ship. You know, we'll switch it to 40% rates. We'll come up into 60% rates. It's got a little more pitch now, but you know, there's full yaw and 60%. Then there's 100% rates. You know, so the yaw isn't crazy. And the pitch isn't all, you know, all that intense, but you know what strikes me about this quadcopter is just how smooth it is. It's just not, it's not a you know, it's not a race car by any means, but man, it's what it lacks in speed, it you know, it makes up for in smoothness. You can just see how nice a bank turn you can make. You know, and to be honest with you, this has been my go-to quadcopter for the past couple of weeks. When I come home from work, I just bring this thing out and just have some fun with it out in the yard. It's just a blast. We'll try some flips here. Do a back flip. Flips are pretty stable. Side flip. Do another back flip. You know, the flips are definitely very stable. If you time it right, you can kind of do like a flying back flip. You can go forward. You know, there's a forward flip. It's tough to time it right with this one. Come towards us. You know, it kind of carries some speed. Not as good as most quadcopters, but you know, not that bad. You can do a little bit of, you know, stunt flying with it. I think the only thing that's left to demonstrate in this quadcopter is headless mode. It actually works very well as long as you don't crash it, because it is an algorithm-based headless mode. It doesn't have a compass chip in it. But what we'll do is we'll just kind of set it off over here over the garden, yaw it randomly, put it in the headless mode, and pull the stick back to us, and you see it came right back. So that works very well. Pull it back out of headless mode. There we go. So yeah, you can use headless mode as a one key return home, as long as, like I said, if you crash it, you have to make sure that you recalibrate it. Otherwise, it'll forget its setting. So yeah, I think that about covers everything with this quadcopter. You know, like I said, it's definitely not a rocket ship, but it's definitely smooth. You know, if you have a friend that's just learning how to fly, this is what you want to have them fly. It's just nice and easy to fly. And it looks like we hit LVC as well. So I hope this video was helpful to someone. If it was, please give it a thumbs up. If you haven't already, please subscribe. Definitely leave a comment down below. And as always, thanks for watching. I'll catch you next time.